Shalom, and welcome to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. This is a recording of a Shabbat teaching with Rabbinic Intern, Leora Pearl.
I want to introduce somebody to you and introduce you to someone, and then I'm going to ask two favors of this room, which I think I would ask in general, but specifically because of having an intern teaching this evening, I'm going to ask with extra love. Okay, this is Leora. Everyone say hi, Leora. Hi. Okay, great. Leora is our rabbinic intern. She's one of 3 rabbinic interns and one of 2 new rabbinic interns to our team. And if you weren't familiar with this idea before, though you may have heard it many times, we are a teaching hospital at Temple Beth, and we take enormous pride in the fact that there are people who are well on their way to their own rabbinic journeys, their own clergy journeys, who come and they teach and they act in a pastoral fashion, and they are a part of our broader clergy team. Leora is one of those people. So this afternoon, the teaching was not only crafted by Leora and will not only be delivered by Leora, but it's not just a part of our Shabbat, then, it's also a part of her Shabbat and her learning journey. So I'm going to ask with extra care for 2 things. Be quiet and be loud, please, okay? Be quiet in that any whispering in this room and in any room when someone is teaching is particularly difficult for the person teaching. Leora wants to engage everyone who is in this room. And to that point, I'll just say also, please be loud. I've promised Leora that you have a lot to think and a lot to say. So when she does invite you, it would be very helpful for you to be loud. So without further ado, this afternoon's Torah teaching will be given to us by Leora.
Shabbat Shalom. Okay, so this week we are going to be talking about Ki Tavo, which will be the upcoming Parsha. And to begin with, you can see I have a source sheet here. There's obviously way more on this source sheet than we can ever hope to get through today. But, it's food for thought, something to take home and consider if you want to do a little bit of further reading or ask yourself some of the questions that we're not going to have time to go through today. Please feel free to do that. To begin with, I want to sort of set the scene. I'd like to set the scene a little bit. So essentially what we have here at the beginning of Ki Tavo, early on in the Parsha, you have this sort of performative ceremony where you have the 12 tribes, which are divided into 6. So on one mountain, on Mount Gerizim, we have Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Joseph, and Benjamin. And then on the other mountain, Mount Aval, we have to do the curses. We have Reuben, Gad, Asher, Zebulun, Dan, and Naphtali. The first group is going to do the blessings. The second group is going to do the curses. And after each, all the Israelites are going to say, Amen. So we might speak for a while at length, and the rabbis have written at length, about why the division of tribes was done in this way. Why did some of the tribes get to be on team blessing and some of them have to be on team curse? We're not going to spend a lot of time on that today, but it's something the rabbis have written about extensively and something I urge you to think about. We might already be able to come up with some reasons why Joseph and Benjamin would be on team blessing. But some of the other tribes are a little more complicated and take a little bit of consideration. I also want to draw your attention to the fact that at this point in the Torah, Shoftim has already happened. They've already set up a system of government. We have judges. At some point in the future, we may have kings. We will have kings. There's going to be prophets. There's going to be witnesses to crimes. And they're going to testify. You need 2 of them. And there's rules about due process. Essentially, a judicial system has already been put into place. And so we might ask ourselves, initially, we have the 10 Commandments, we have a judicial system. Why do we need all these additional crimes outlined, some of which could be subsumed in the 10 Commandments, and some of which are far more specific? So why are we doing this at all? And in order to answer that question, we're going to start to look specifically at the curses, not to leave out blessings. Obviously, blessings are important, but we have limited time today. So, first thing I'd like you to do is take a look at the actual language of the Torah under Deuteronomy, and you'll see here on the first 2 pages, I have what outlines 12 curses. They're in Hebrew on the right, in English on the left, and I'd like you to take a second and read them to yourself. And look for what stands out in those 12. What stands out to you? Some of them are reflective of the 10 Commandments. That's right. How do you mean specifically? In what way? derivative or something that's sort of in the same category of sexual transgression. So you're right. So we have idolatry, forbidden idolatry. We have something to do with honoring your parents, rather it's not insulting your parents. Then we have a series of crimes that are under sort of sexual transgressions and a series of other. And if you notice, we have a hierarchical structure again. In the Ten Commandments, we have God, we have parents, and we have everybody else. Here again, we see that same structure. We see God at the top, we see parents next, and then we see everybody else, the way you behave with the rest of your community. Now, why do you think that is? Why? Any thoughts? Yes.
Everybody.
God above everybody, sure. And then, why parents next? Yeah. Because they're the next authority, right? And these are the building blocks of the Israelite society, right? First is God, then parents, who were the center of the family unit, the building blocks, yes? Interesting. Okay, yeah, that could be made. That's true. That is an observation. That if you obey the rest of them, sure, if you're obeying the rest of them, then you are also not insulting your parents or honoring your parents, and you're also potentially honoring God. We're going to talk a little bit more about the sort of intricacies of the different curses, but is there anything else that stands out just on its face to you about these 12 curses? And I'll give you a hint. It's in the title of the Torah sheet, of the source sheet. What do you notice? Which of these is not like the other ones? That's right. So 2 of these actually specify ba, right? Bisatar or biseter, if it was modern Hebrew, in secret, right? In secret. 2 of these curses are behaviors that specifically say that you may not do this in secret, or you'll be cursed if you do it in secret. Now, here's the interesting thing. In law, generally speaking, if you have a number of provisions under a single heading, you have 12 provisions, and they're all under the category of curses, and 2 of those out of the 12 actually say the words in secret, it implies, logically, that the other 10 would be done not in secret, or maybe even in public. And interestingly enough, that's not what the rabbis are going to argue. The rabbis are going to say, as we read further on, that all 12 of these are things that are done in secret or in private, and why? So first of all, why the double language? Why the in secret for those 2 provisions? It's number 15 and number 24. So to begin to answer this question, we can start to look at what the rabbis said. So first of all, we're going to go to 24 first, because we're going to start with a little bit of Rashi. So if you'll turn to I'm sorry, there's no page numbers, page 3 of your source sheet. At the very top, we have a piece of commentary written by Rashi. Can somebody read it for me out loud? Yes, thank you. Nice and loud.
He that smiteth his fellow secretly. It is of slaughter that it's here speaks. Slaughter may be termed smiting in secret. Rabbi Eliezer 53. I have seen in the work of our Moses, the preacher. They are here. 11 verses begin with the words, "Cursed be," corresponding to 11 tribes in allusion to Simeon. However, he, Moses, did not write down a formula began with "cursed be," because he had no intention to bless him before his death. When he blessed the other tribes, the tribe of Simeon is only the one mentioned in chapter 33, which contains the blessing that Moses bestowed on the tribes. Therefore, he did not want to curse them.
Thank you. Good reading. So we see here he says 11 curses, and he deducts Simeon. And for some of the rabbis, they said 11 curses because if you look carefully, curse number 12 is kind of a catch-all. It's kind of a big category for all the others. So some of the rabbis argued there were actually 11 curses. But the important takeaway here is to look at this, "Cursed be he that smiteth his fellow secretly." And what Rashi said is this is not literal. This isn't if you went to someone in the dead of night and struck him or stabbed him. This is a death by slander, murder by reputation. So this is not to be done literally. So what we see here is this very well could happen in secret. If someone starts a rumor or slanders your name, you may never know about it. There might not be any other witnesses. Who's to say who started a rumor? And what we'll see here is this common thread in many of the curses. There would be no one to report it. these crimes or these behaviors would happen without witnesses. There may not even be a clear victim. And in order to see that, we can look to one of the other curses, which talks about number 18, cursed be the one who misdirects a blind person who is underway. And what Rashi says about that one is, this is not literal. This does not mean that you lead a blind person into traffic. What he's saying is, if you are in a position of authority, if you have charisma, if you have responsibility, and you basically convince or misdirect somebody who is vulnerable, they may not even know that a crime has been committed. Maybe they don't know enough to tell anybody. They might not even realize it. So that all these behaviors that we can see on this page have that theme running through them. They're crimes that happen in private. They're crimes that there's maybe no witnesses to go ahead and testify. There may not be any evidence. There may not be a clear victim who can come forward and say anything. And in the case of God, building idols in private, who's the victim there? God, right? Arguably, the person who commits these crimes or does these actions might also be a victim if you think that you have to live with yourself every day. You have to look at yourself in the mirror. Now, briefly, since we don't have much time, I just want to point out that the word arur comes from the root arar. And when we look at that word, it can mean a lot of things. It can mean, we say cursed be the man who. But arar can also mean to stab, to separate, to peel away. And so all of these crimes that we call cursed are things that will tear or stab or separate someone from the community. They will all tear at the fabric of society. They're all behaviors that would unravel your relationships with the people around you. And the crime, the punishment for these crimes, if they were repeated, would be exile. And so to separate, to draw the community apart, to not allow you to live in community with your fellow Israelites, that's what we're talking about here. So whether anybody sees you do it, whether anybody knows you've done it, whether anybody comes forward or not, you know. And God knows. And that alone is enough to degrade the fabric of society. And that seems to be a common thread here. Now, is there anything on this list that we might add today? What kind of curses, what kind of crimes might we add in today's sensibilities? Things that would erode the fabric of society. Yeah.
False advertising.
Explain. Right, so false advertising, it may be that your people who buy into that don't even know they've been victimized, right? So it could meet some of the criteria. Sure, right, that's great. Anyone else? Other crimes that or other cursed behaviors that might erode the fabric of society today? If we look at the different themes here, we've got all of our important relationships. Is anybody missing? Is there anything here that should be added? So as you can see, we're almost out of time, and so I'm not going to go through in depth all of the other curses and the minutiae, all the different commentators, but you will see those common threads throughout the curses. And what I do want to leave you with is this. In Shoftim, when they set up a system of justice, when we're told to set up judges, and we have witnesses and due process and experts and testimony, and then again here in Ki Tavo, what we have is a bunch of rules about what you shouldn't do, but they're balanced with all the blessings, all the things you'll get if you do the good things, all the rewards that are waiting for you if you can live in community, if you follow God's mitzvot. If you do what you ought to do, then the blessings will abound. And I think as we're in Elul and as we're approaching the high holidays and we're thinking about that balance sheet, that ledger, that moral inventory that we're all going to be doing and looking at ourselves and saying, where have I transgressed? Who do I owe an amends to? Where have I gone wrong? I think the important thing in both of these parshiyot and also in the Torah itself is it's not one-sided. It's not all do not do this or else. There's also, if you do this, look at what's waiting for you. And so to keep in mind as we go into high holidays, to give ourselves a little credit for the things we've done well, to be grateful for all the blessings we have, and also to see where we might improve for next year.
You've been listening to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. If you enjoy these podcasts, we invite you to write a review on the Apple Podcast website or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information on Temple Beth Am, Los Angeles, please visit www.tbala.org.